Thank you, Maria. Thank you. Thank you so much for organizing this. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to our parents. And thank you, parents, for being here today. I really appreciate your time to be with me or with us, even better, today. A couple of things before I proceed with the presentation. Um, there will be another presentation right after this one at 1 p.m. that will be conducted in Spanish. Just in case you would prefer to have it in Spanish, we will be doing one in Spanish. And the second thing that I think is important for you to know, and I believe Maria already mentioned it, we are recording this meeting. So I think it's important for you to be aware that we will be recording this meeting and that we will be sharing this recording with other parents. Okay, Miss Hernandez, see you at 1 p.m. Nos vemos a la una, Miss Hernandez, no hay problema. So once again, thank you so much. This is our very first um, correcto. This is, oh, I'm sorry. So can we go to the next one? So parents, my very best intention of this meeting is basically two main outcomes. The first one, I think you deserve to know who the new chief is, what is my philosophy, what is my background, and I will be sharing that with you. The second aspect that I believe it is important for you to know, to understand or to refresh in case you already know, is how does network 8 really work? What is the structure of the network 8? How many students we have? How many schools are involved in the network 8? What is my role as a chief of a school? And what is the work that we will be doing for the rest of the school year to have the best outcomes possible from network 8. So let's begin with this bold guy. Who this guy is? So once again, my name is Gilberto Piedrahita, and I am the chief of schools of elementary schools in Network 8. I was born and raised and also educated in my home country of Colombia. I was born in a beautiful city in front of the Caribbean Sea, Cartagena, Colombia, a town rich not only of romanticism, but also a lot of history. During my time in Colombia, after finishing my high school, I was trained as a dentist, and I actually practiced dentistry for almost 10 years in Colombia. When I was working in my private practice, I also divided my time, not sometimes working as a dentist, but I also spend time dedicated to serving the community. That is one of the things that really moved me and is giving back, is providing service to the people who live with me in that particular community. So I became a member of Rotary International, and our main job back then, I am talking about back in the late 80s, early 90s, we were trying to eradicate polio from Earth, and we were providing a lot of not only education but also vaccines to end this horrible disease. But I was also a part of the fight against AIDS Society. Back in the 80s, early 90s, AIDS was killing millions of people around the world, and we knew very little about this. So my job in this society was to provide education to people and what were the best practices to and not get infected by this virus. But after 10 years of doing my work as a dentist and belonging to two different organizations, I decided to do something new and came to America with the purpose of learning English as a second language. I was already 32 years old when that happened. And if you know anybody who was not born here, I came late with the purpose of learning English. When you are old, it's not easy, but not impossible. Once I was in this country, I an opportunity of becoming a classroom teacher, a bilingual teacher, was presented to me, and I took that opportunity more than because of my passion of teaching, as an opportunity to interact with children and rapidly learning English. That was in my mind, but little I knew that just within a few weeks of being a classroom teacher, I was going to find a passion of mine. I feel really passionate about education, about educating children, and also helping parents, guiding parents, and how to better educate their children at home and supporting them from school. So I was a classroom teacher here in Chicago for 11 years. 8 out of those 11 years, I worked as a bilingual teacher, mostly in grades fourth and fifth. By my last 3 years, I became the science teachers to eighth graders. I taught at two different schools, one in the very far north side of the city, Jordan, and the second one in the northwest side, which is Mary Lyon Elementary School. But after 11 years, I wanted to do something else. And I decided to go to administration. And my first job in administration was in Network 7, very close to us in the little village at Saucedo Scholastic Academy, where I became the assistant principal. And I was there for 4 years. Loved the school, loved the community. Um, but in my desire of serving children in a different capacity, I decided to become a school principal. And there is a school in the very far north side, close to Evanston, actually. It's called Jordan Community School, where I was a teacher 10 years before. I became a principal there in 2015, and I was there for 8 years. And again, I learned to love the community, love the students, love the work I'm doing, and I was deeply involved in the Jordan community school community. But again, after 8 years of doing this work, I thought I could do something else. Stick with education, but how to serve students in a different capacity. And I decided to go to a network role. So I became the deputy chief of elementary schools in Network 8 in at the end of March of 2023. That was like a week before spring break. Not knowing that a couple of months later, my boss, my chief, maybe many of you met her chief, Davila, Lucila Davila. She got promoted and she got a different, not promoted, she went to a different school district and became the superintendent in that district. So I applied to that role that became vacant, and I became the network chief in August of 2023. So I am now in my month number 5, I believe, as a chief, and 5 months, but it took 1 week to really love Network 8. As you know, my background is Hispanic. Spanish is my first language. I know my culture, I know my music, I know and my belief and the belief of my community very well. So I was really excited when I learned that Network 8 vacancy was available and that the largest composition of the network was Hispanic. Um, my philosophy in education, and I am very passionate about it, I strongly believe that any child, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the background, regardless of anything, any child can succeed. Any child can achieve. Any child can learn and move forward to live an independent life in the world, capable of making good choices, making good decisions on their own. That is my belief. Of course, success is different from person to person, but in my mind, success is being able to accomplish something in life. And I do believe that every single child can achieve, can succeed. That is what I believe in education, but success doesn't really happen because of this. I just not because I am touching the school, just because I'm sitting down in a classroom, success will come to me. No, teachers and administrators or educators have the beautiful responsibility to make sure that success happens in the classroom. We educators must put all the systems in place so the students can be successful. That is what I really believe in education. Maria, do you mind going on to the next slide, please? So once I joined Network 8, I found out what was the vision and mission of Network 8. And the vision, I couldn't be more in agreement with this vision because it's totally aligned to my belief, to my philosophy. The vision of Network 8 is cultivating a sense of belonging for students to flourish. Why do I believe this? Because as I mentioned in my slide before, every child can succeed. But in order for the child to succeed, many things need to happen. One of them is make sure that the student have a sense of belonging in the school. That every child from pre-K, 3 years old, all the way to grade 12 in high school, age of 18, 17, 18, every child feels that they belong to the community. And that is why I am so aligned to this vision. Now, the mission for the Network 8, and I'm going to read it as the way as it is. Network 8 provides strategic supports the schools, builds equitable pathways, and honors language, culture, and identity in order to foster student success in a global society. That is another component in order to be successful. In order to for us to create a sense of belonging in every classroom, we need to provide support to schools and school principals to make sure that that situation happens for every single child. And that is the mission. That is the work that Network 8 does with our 25 schools. But you might be wondering, what do you mean by Network 8? Wait, what is that? Well, as you know, you might not know, but I think you might know that Chicago Public Schools is one of the largest districts in the country. I believe we are number 3. If now we're fighting number 4, we're there with Miami-Dade Public Schools. But we serve about 325 students in the city of Chicago. Those it is so large that to better manage the district, then CPS has divided basically the entire school district into different areas, different regions. Each one of those regions, each one of those areas is called network. So this is for network 1 to network 14 for elementary schools, and there are other networks for high schools. I am in charge of Network 8. You, the one who watching this presentation, also belong to Network 8. So basically, Network 8, and I am counting as of January 27th as today, we have 12,359 students in elementary school. So we have students from 3 years old attending preschool all the way to 14, sometimes 15, finishing the primary grade levels in 8th grade. Those are the schools that we serve. There are 25 schools in this network. Only one of them only serve students from middle school, meaning 6, 7, and 8, but most of the other schools begin in pre-K and ends in 8th grade. In that little blue box, That box shows the names of all of the 25 schools in our network. So if you are a parent attending this a presentation, then the name of the school that the child attends should appear in that blue box. The orange one at the bottom shows how our what is the demographic of the network. And the large majority, the very large majority, 87.5% of our students are Hispanic. That does not mean that all of them are bilingual. Simply, they come from a Spanish background. Some of them come, they just came to America from Spanish-speaking countries, and some of them are just the child of second, third, fourth generation where English is really well spoken, and they don't really need the support in the native language, but they're still Hispanic. We have a 9.4% of African American, that being the second largest demographic, and a small percent of students who are under the white category or other category. That other could be, they could be Asian, they can be Native American, they could be any other demographic designation, but that is pretty much how our 12,359 students are divided when it goes to demographics. Next one, Maria, please. So that was the school, right? 25 schools. Every school has a principal. Most of them has an assistant principal, teachers, and blah, 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 blah. But how is the network? Is composed. We have a team, and again, our mission is to provide support to all those 25 schools. So in the orange is the chief, the deputy chief, and the executive assistants, and the two boxes in the bottom shows the name of the people who are supporting the school in different modalities. So we have six instructional support leaders, and we have, I believe, 9 specialists, each one of them having a very specific role when supporting the school. Next slide, please. I am almost done, parents, and at the end, I'm going to give you time to ask any question you may have. Um, but how do we center the work that we do in our network? Well, we have some specific expectations when it goes to each classroom in the network, and also some expectations that goes in every single school. So when a student is in a school, we're expecting that in the classroom, every single student has access to grade level content. That means the instruction that the child is receiving is rigorous and is expected to happen at that specific grade level. So a child in fifth grade should be receiving academic content for a fifth grader, and not second or first grade. That is basically what that means. But also in the classroom, we expect to see students engage in high quality tasks implemented the best way possible. So not only the instruction, but all the assessments, projects, homework, and the work that students are doing should be high quality. When you go to schools, our expectations is that every school has a consistent process to identify student needs and respond to them. Not every student learns the same way, and some of them require some extra support in order to be successful. So we expect that the school has systems in place that could identify what are exactly the needs of their students in order for us to provide what they need. We are also expecting that the school has some conditions that provide a very high, rigorous, rich, and holistic student experience. It's not only in the classroom; it's wherever the student goes in that building. The student are getting positive, meaningful, and purposeful experiences, regardless if the student is in the classroom, if the student is in the cafeteria, if the student is in the gymnasium or in the library. Wherever the student goes, it is expected the student to have positive student learning experiences. And the last one, we're expecting that every school design a continuous improvement learning cycle. The work that they do, ILT meaning instructional leadership team. So the school is working in a system that will result in high quality instruction for every child in the building. The next one, Maria, please. But you also might be wondering, all right, Chief Piedrahita is talking about many things going on in our network, but how are our students doing in the network? How are they performing in our network? And I have included here different data points. I might not spend much time talking about each one of them, but I want to give you a good overview of what this is about. So students take three important assessments throughout the school year. All the students in grades K through second, they they um, they take an assessment called I Ready. This I Ready has two portions: one in reading, one in math. The other assessment that they receive are students from 3 to 8. They get an assessment that is called Start 360. They also take an assessment in reading and also in math. These two assessments, iReady and Start 360, are given to students 3 times a year. What is the purpose of giving the test 3 times a year? Number one, to determine what each student is at in reading and in math. Then we can take another exam 6 months later, the MOY or middle of the school year, just to progress the money. I'm sorry, just to monitor the progress of the student. For example, Gilberto was at the beginning of the school year and this level in reading. Now, 5 months later, what is this person at? Is that above as it is expected, or did they make much growth? So the school needs to make adjustment, instructional adjustments to help the student achieve what the student needs to achieve. That is the reason why we give this assessment 2 or 3 times a year. The green box shows another assessment. It's called the IAR um, assessment. That is the Illinois assessment of readiness. That is being given only once a year in reading and in math. This is a mandated state assessment. So we don't have any say in this one. We have to take it, and this is for the state to basically monitor the academic progress of every single school in the entire state of Illinois. And the last one, the purple one, which says, "What do Network 8 students want?" This is a survey that all children in Chicago takes. It's a survey where basically they express what is exactly what they want to be successful. And they chose 3 different categories out of 10. Those and that box shows what those categories are. Now, why is this important? Why am I mentioning this to you? Because based on the students' performance last school year helped us determine what are the priorities, what are the strategies that we will be working on in this current school year in order to get better results. The idea is that by the end of the school year, we are in a much better place than where we're at than that we were at the end of 2022-2023. Just let's take one for instance. I ready in reading. That is the blue box on the left upper corner of this slide. It says that 47.4% of our students in grades K through second are meeting or exceeding the expectations. So almost half of our students are ready to go to third grade and they will not need, most likely, any support because they are there where they needed to be. However, the other half of our students are not there yet. And we need to work with the schools to make sure that these students are receiving the support that they need. The teachers need to implement some strategies that needs to be implemented in the classroom so those students feel supported and they can achieve what is expected to achieve. I am mentioning this just for you to understand the next slide, because the next slide is going to show what is the work that we are doing in order to improve those numbers. Can we go to the next one, Maria, please? Thank you. So this is why we have chosen three large priorities in our network. The first one is instructional core, solid tier one instruction. And I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to make sure that you understand what is this instructional core. Instructional core is basically the instruction that is happening in the main core subject, particularly reading and math. Those two are the most important one. And you may say, you might be wondering yourself, why not science? Why not social studies? Well, I do believe that if a child becomes really proficient in reading in English or in Spanish, the language that is being given, depending on what the child is at, but if the child develops strong reading skills, it is very easy for a child to perform well in other subjects. With reading is fundamental, like science and social studies. And of course, math, because there are some skills in math that are not related to reading, and that goes when it comes to strictly numbers. And what is tier one is, so that's instructional core. But what does tier one mean? Tier one is basically the whole group instruction. When the teacher stands up in front of the entire class, providing instruction, that is what is called tier one. The instruction that is received by the entire class, by the entire group. And most of them will be ready to move on to the next session without support. Those are tier one students. So what we want to make sure is that every classroom, in every school, in our network, students are receiving solid, strong tier one instruction, hopefully ready to move on to the next skill without extra support. How do we do that? How can we make sure that that is happening? Well, there are some instructional standards that dictates what is exactly what every child needs to learn in every single grade level. So we need to make sure that the instruction being given to all the students are aligned to those standards. Number two, that every school adopts a high quality curriculum. A high quality curriculum is a curriculum that meets some specific criteria that is being approved by CPS, and that has good information to be able to move the students and to meet, I'm sorry, for the students to meet what they really need to learn. We are making a big emphasis in early literacy and math. Why early literacy? Because in the first grade level up to second grade is when children are really learning not only to identify the alphabet, the words, to learn the sounds made by each one of those words, the phonemic awareness, but also to start reading. That is the time when the students learn how to read. And it is proven that if by third grade level a child is reading at the expectation of that grade level, most likely the child will be successful. When the child is not meeting those expectations, then the child will need some support in order to achieve that success. Um, because of the composition of the network, we are also making sure that that instructional support is being given to all English language learners, which we have a significant number of students in our network who are learning English. The second priority is MTSS. That is nothing else than providing structures and systems in place where students who cannot be successful with the tier one can be successful. So then we need to provide some specific strategies to be provided to students in small groups so they can achieve what was not achieved during the whole group instruction. And I hope I am making sense with what I said. One way to make sure that our students learn this is by making sure that every single student who needs an intervention is being given that intervention. And by intervention, I mean that if I am a teacher with 25 students in the classroom, perhaps three or four of them need some kind of support in a specific skill or in a specific concept. So as a teacher, I call those three, four students in a small group instruction and provide the extra support needed so that child is able to succeed. And the last one is assessments, formative assessment. It's basically using assessments with two main purposes. Intentional assessment. It's not that giving an assessment just because we need to give an assessment. No, giving an assessment, number one, to intentionally measure what the student have learned in one specific skill. And number two, what do I do as a teacher with those results? Yes, I have 25 students assessing, 15 of them got 100%, but only five of them got, let's say, 70%. What do I do with these five children who got 70%? So I provide the support, I reassess them, and hopefully they will get the results that we are hoping to get. That is basically the three big priorities that we are working on with our school leaders and our school teachers in order to get better results than the one that we got the last school year. Next slide, Maria, please. And it's almost done. Actually, I am done now. That is the overview of the network. That is what we are working on. This is who this guy is. And I would love to hear from you. I've been talking for 35 minutes without stopping. So if you have any question, please just unmute yourself and address any question for us, please. Don't be shy. There is one little feature in the Google Meet that is called raising hands. You are you want to, you can raise your hand and start talking, or you want to, you can just post your question in the chat, and the Miss Munoz will read that question for you.
Also, to make it a little bit more, family oriented and so on, I'm gonna stop recording so you guys don't feel the pressure that we're recording this part. Let me see.
I have